Combining the best of daily fantasy and survivor pools, Stat Hero is the next chapter in fantasy sports. No more competing with the sharks or experts ever, because your only competition is Stat Hero itself. The face of DFS has changed. Finally, a game designed for the rest of us.
Hey, what's going on? Jeff Ratcliffe here. Week 10 fantasy football. We're here. We're 1 month out from the fantasy football playoffs, and of course, a lot going on around the NFL. And you know, at PFF, we love to dig beneath the box score and pull out some advanced stats that give us some insights for fantasy purposes. So let's give you 5 stats to know here for Week 10 fantasy football. We're going to start with the guy himself, Lamar Jackson. He has been phenomenal this season, and he got it done even against a very good Patriots defense. But you know, when we look at the fantasy points, yes, phenomenal. When you look a little bit closer, he's even better. So far this year, 11.1% of his runs have gone for 15-plus yards. That is insane, the production that he is putting up. And of course, with this ability to run the football, Jackson has a nice high floor. You know, heading into the season, I wouldn't have said that. I would have said, hey, he's a volatile quarterback. Now, he is volatile with his arm, and he's not doing a ton with his arm, but because he can put points on the board with his legs, remember, every 40 rushing yards is the same amount of fantasy points in most leagues as a passing touchdown. Because of all that, he is a high floor, high ceiling quarterback. He's an elite fantasy option. Of course, you don't need me to tell you that. All right, let's go on to the second stat. Over the last couple weeks here, Mike Evans has really surged. He's on fire, especially after last week's offensive outburst. And really a big part of it is his usage in the red zone. He has consistently been one of the most heavily targeted wide receivers in the red zone. That's especially true over the last 3 games. He has 7 end zone targets over that span. Those are premium targets. Wide receivers have their best chance of scoring when they're targeted in the end zone. Mike Evans, obviously a stud in that area. Now, he will very likely be shadowed by Patrick Peterson this week, but don't let that dissuade you from starting Mike Evans. He is an every week, no matter what, start until further notice. Again, probably don't need me to tell you that. All right, let's go on to the next stat. Hey, I had a couple good stats for you. Let's do a bad one. Kalen Ballage will be taking over as essentially a 3-down back for the Miami Dolphins with Mark Walton suspended for 4 games. And hey, 3-down backs, that's a good thing. Good running backs on bad teams, though, not always the best fantasy options. And bad running backs on bad teams, well, certainly not good fantasy options. So far this season, Kalen Ballage ranks dead last among running backs in yards after contact per attempt with 1.4. Now, it's a small sample size. It's not like he has 100-plus carries or anything like that, but still, that is an ugly number. Typically, we see the lowest in the league just under 2.0. He is way under 2.0. So if you picked up Kalen Ballage, yes, he is going to have a role here. He's the only show in town, basically, for the Dolphins, but don't get your expectations too high over the next 4 weeks without Mark Walton. All right, so I gave you a bad running back stat. Let's do a good running back stat for our 4th one here. Let's talk about Chris Carson. Obviously, he's been phenomenal in that run-heavy offense for the Seahawks, although they weren't very run-heavy last week. But it's not just the volume for Chris Carson. He's been getting it done on his own as well. So far this season, he leads all running backs with 57 combined forced missed tackles. That's both as a runner and receiver. He is elusive. He's making defenders miss. He's generating yards after contact. And when you're generating yards after contact, well, let's face it, you're generating extra fantasy points. Chris Carson has, you know, heading into the season, we thought, hey, it's going to be a committee. Chris Carson, Rashad Penny. No, he's put miles of distance between himself and Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny at this point, he's just a handcuff, and that's it. Chris Carson, though, he is a top 10 fantasy back, if not better, going forward here. And his ability to make defenders miss is obviously a very good thing. All right, let's round it out here. One more bad one. I can't give you all good stats. Let's talk about Odell Beckham Jr. It's not the season we had hoped. Certainly not even close, in fact, there in Cleveland. And it's interesting because a big part of the problem may be where Beckham is being targeted. So far this season, his average depth of target is 11.1 yards. That means, on average, from the line of scrimmage, he's being targeted 11.1 yards downfield. That, if he finished his season today, would be a career low. Now, it's not like he's the type of guy like Kenny Golladay who will be targeted over 17 yards downfield on average, but typically we've seen Beckham in the high 12s, if not low 13s. That extra yard or two of distance actually does make a difference over the long term here. So if the Browns don't start targeting him a little bit further downfield, we can expect a lot of the same out of Odell Beckham Jr. And that essentially means at this point, he is not a fantasy stud. He is still a darn good football player, don't get me wrong, but a fantasy stud week in and week out, no, he's not a wide receiver 1. He's more of a wide receiver 2 type and a boomer bust at that. It's unfortunate, but that's what we have here. So we'll keep an eye on Odell Beckham Jr.'s average depth of target. Hopefully we see it go up, but I'm not going to hold my breath there. Of course, you can monitor that as well. We have all the average depth of target numbers for every player in the NFL over at PFF.com. That's in our fantasy stats section. Of course, we have stats galore, so you can get a lot of these nuggets. We have stats galore, rankings, projections, DFS information, everything you need for football purposes. All that at PFF.com.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.